Okay, good morning, guys. Thank you for waking up so early and being up at 8 a.m. I don't know who scheduled that one, but thank you.
I'll take
credit. Excited to be here today. So we're here to talk about workforce development. And I know that's a term that everybody throws around and you hear it all the time, but really what it means to me and this group here is, where the heck are we going to find the workers for our manufacturers? It's really what it boils down to. That's why we're all here today. So I'm super excited. I come from industry. I've worked at peak manufacturing for 20 years. I also work in the workforce side with the ShopRite Foundation. So I'm the chair of that, and I've been involved with that for 20 years as well. And then I'm the treasurer for JAMA. So super excited to be involved with their organization as well. So I have a little bit of industry as well as the workforce side of it. So very honored to be moderating this panel. But I'm more excited about the talent pipeline that we have in Jackson. It's something that we have been working on for many, many years. But really what it boils down to is, how do we get people involved, and then how do we get them in jobs? And there's this huge pipeline in between those two things. So the panel that I have here today, these are the people that are making that happen today, the people that are going to make it continue to happen, and then hopefully grow it for all the positions that we have. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the panelists. What I'd like to do is a self-introduction. So your name, your title, what organization, and then how do you fit into the pipeline? So where does your organization fit within that pipeline? So go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Coughlin. I am the executive director at the ShopRite Foundation. I've been with the organization 14 years, and the way that we fit into the pipeline is we focus exclusively on youth. Our programs start at grade 3 and go through grade 10, and they are intended to create awareness. So we're kind of the first stop on a student that is potentially interested in a manufacturing career.
And I'm Olivia Steele, Executive Director of JAMA. I've been with the organization for 15 years. And the way that we fit in is through apprenticeship, career exploration with partners like the ShopRite Foundation, partnering with the Career Center on apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships, working with Michigan Works for funding, and other colleges across the state to try and get our students credit. And then we're also partnering with manufacturing associations across the state to figure out what can we do to work together and how do we become better and spread what we do here in Jackson across the state.
I'm Jamie Vandenberg from Jackson College, Dean of Workforce Technical and Professional Education. And Jackson College contributes to the talent pipeline as we are a related technical instruction provider. So we provide educational opportunities. We also sometimes receive funds that can help you grow your talent pipeline. So if you're hiring somebody that doesn't have the skills needed yet, we sometimes have funds available that can help you develop them. And we also have the ability to seek funding like grants and things to help our region develop programs that are needed.
My name is Katie Berkey, and I'm business service rep at Michigan Works, and we fit into the talent pipeline in that we assist employers with state and federal grants for hiring and training. So I work with these wonderful ladies here and their training providers to provide a training to employees. We also have a career seeker side. So if somebody's coming in off the street and they need training, then we can assist there too.
Okay, so Olivia, you run JAMA, which is a membership organization. So you literally have hundreds of manufacturers in your ear all the time, and probably not telling you all the great things. I'm guessing they're telling you some of the more negative things. So what are some of the challenges that you were hearing from the manufacturers as far as obtaining and retaining employees?
Yeah. So the shrinking labor pool is always that conversation. Along with that is the skills gap that comes along with that shrinking labor pool. And then with that comes competition of talent. So companies pulling from other companies, which just creates a bigger problem. And then, of course, you have the retention and culture within the facilities that they're coming from. And so that's something that we're trying to work through, creating programs to talk about retention and culture and what can you do to help keep your talent in place. And then there's always the external pressures, childcare, transportation, labor costs, Those are all the things that we're hearing on the GMS side on issues that are happening with our manufacturers.
Yeah, and culture is so important. I think that that's what I think JAMA does well, is they have programs outside of their apprenticeship programs and such to do more training and to really have events and different workshops to make sure that the companies understand how important that culture is. So kudos to you. Katie, I just heard a crazy statistic. It completely floored me. So I just heard that we have over 600 job openings just in the manufacturing industry in Jackson. That is true. Okay. That just seems incredible to me. So from your perspective, what are you hearing from the employers or from the manufacturers as far as, what their struggles are, what their challenges are, and how come there's so many job openings?
So I definitely agree with what everyone else has said about the skills gap, childcare. I think that's where Michigan Works is a little bit different in that we offer barrier removal. And then, when we're looking at things like childcare and some of the new laws that are coming out with like the GSRP, preschool free for, I don't know when that is supposed to happen, but there has a lot of childcare centers really concerned. So that's where we've come in, done some collabs, tried to support those childcare centers to upskill their workers. So I think that all kind of plays into finding that balance, and really what workers are looking for in 2025 is a lot different than what they were looking for 40 years ago. So trying to find that balance and finding the right fit is so crucial. It's not just taking a job because you need one. It's taking a job that's going to work with your family, with your life, so that you can still have that balance.
So what is a typical relationship? So just so everybody has a perspective, if a manufacturer calls you up and says, we have 100 job openings, what does that look like as far as your interaction with the manufacturers to see that through?
Yeah, so we start asking questions. That's the biggest thing, is figuring out why there are so many job openings, what the job openings are, what the pay is, what the skill qualifications are, how many applicants, what their hiring process. We can refer them to other partners in the community who might address their application, system.
So coming from industry, I can definitely talk a little bit about the doom and gloom of what's going on right now. We have many people, especially our company, they're getting ready to retire. And we've talked about this for 20 years. It was like there's going to be this, baby boomers are going and there's going to be this huge skills gap, but it's here, it's now. So I think it's really important that we have this pipeline in place, and we've had it in place, but now, it's where are those employees, not just kids that are excited. So it is nice to be able to see the pipeline kind of rolling, and we need it now, and it's only going to get worse at this point. So again, kudos to you guys. So how do we combat this? How do we work as far as getting those adults ready? Because it is very nice to get them excited at the Shop Rep Foundation level, but ultimately we have to get the adults working. So we train. So Olivia, the Jackson Area Manufacturers Association started the Academy of Manufacturing Careers, got that all right, many years ago. And I'm guessing the training has really evolved over the years to kind of work with those modern needs that manufacturers have. So tell me a little bit about how it was created originally and the process of that evolution to get us where we are today.
Yeah. So obviously creating 4-year apprenticeship programs is how it started. And there were a handful of them where today we have almost 30 different apprenticeship occupations. But with apprenticeship also comes a change too. So now you have not just the hands-on where you go to school and you go to work. You could do a competency-based, or you could do a hybrid, so that, with competency you can prove your skill rather than go to class. And then the hybrid kind of combines the two. So there's that. Plus we're learning that apprenticeship can be spread amongst other career pathways such as IT and healthcare. And so growing into those so that people can go and get some skill in something and then go to work at the same time. And then obviously we've also learned that we can integrate all of these apprenticeship programs into our youth. So for over 10 years, JAMA has been training 11th and 12th graders in apprenticeship programs in partnership with our local CTE programs.
Very, very great. Thank you. So thinking about, where your apprentice needs to be at that level, how do we get, and Kelly, this is for you, how do we get the kids, when they start in 3rd grade, how do you know what they need to be learning to get to where we need them to stay? And there's, we're talking 10, 15 years before they get into the role where Olivia has them. So how do you do that?
Short answer is you don't. But the way that we do that is we kind of focus on the trends that we see within industry. Where is industry going? What you'll see more often in our younger programs, our programs that are serving grades 3 through 7, we have a stronger focus on computer science and robotics because that's the direction that we're seeing industry move towards. In our later middle school and early high school programs, that's when you're seeing much more of the hands-on, utilizing a manual mill, in a welding booth, doing those sort of things on SolidWorks, doing 3D modeling. But with the younger students, it's creating that excitement and connecting them with things that they like. We start robotics with Lego robotics because how many 3rd graders do you know that don't like Lego? So we start there with something that they're familiar and interested in, and we say, hey, this that you're interested in can turn into a future career. And I don't know exactly what that career is going to look like in 15 years when you get there, but if this is what you like, there's a space for that for you to grow.
But you still partner and you still work together.
Absolutely.
And it's very important, and you have those conversations with manufacturers about what they need on an ongoing basis.
And to that, when we're looking at those middle school and early high school programs, our curriculum is directly aligned to those next steps. It's taking into consideration what does that perfect student that's coming into a Career Center program as an 11th grader, what do they know? What competencies can they show to be able to be pushed further through those youth apprenticeship programs, through those Career Center programs, through Jackson College programs, to be ready quicker to serve industry?
Yeah, I do think that we are on a shift as well as far as giving opportunities for this generation to be able to avoid that 4-year debt, taking that big, huge task on, so they're going through school, then they get a job. I love this opportunity where they can get a job and get paid for it while they learn. And then really it boils down to what do we need to train? What are the gaps in their skills? And that's where we can kind of talk a little bit about the skill gap and who's working to really nail those skills down and then provide a way to educate just on those areas, because you don't have to go to 1,500 credit hours and all this just to get those simple skills. So there's definitely some opportunity within that pipeline. So Jamie, so let's talk about that skills gap. And, I'm guessing it's not a linear pipeline to fill those in, but if you want to give me a little insight and your thoughts on that.
Sure. Kind of like you said, I don't think it's linear. I think we've always thought about how do students engage maybe with Shop Rats and how do they engage with JAMA and Jackson College and the Career Center, and maybe it stacks. But I think it really more is like a bunch of lines that intertwine. So, somebody might have had exposure to some Shop Rats stuff in middle school, and then now they're in high school and they're doing dual enrollment, which means they've interacted with us. But then maybe now they're hired and they're in an apprenticeship at JAMA. And so how do we connect all those pieces? Something specifically that we're working on at Jackson, really making sure that what we're doing is aligned to industry. So like you said, what are those skills that industry is seeking, and are our programs aligned? And so we've introduced a new advisory model this year, which is called the BUILT model, where industry actually have the ability to vote on the competencies. So we said, here's the program, here's the competencies. They're voting on it. They're telling us what matters. They're helping us with those performance-based assessments because you guys want to see that the student can do the thing, right? And then we say, well, where does this fit in? So students, we're doing a pilot right now with some students at JPEC who have done robotics. They've done some Shop Rats stuff. And where can we give them credit for the things they already know or allow them to advance through different modules, and then they can end at the end, hopefully, with 9 credits out of this pilot. And so we currently have just under 2,000 dual enrolled students at Jackson College, just in general. And our trades area is the biggest area of growth. And so that's an opportunity that you mentioned students not wanting to go to school 4 years, take on a bunch of debt. If our local high schools have the ability to enroll a student and they can start to get some of that credit with us, or we can help bridge the gap between what they're doing at the high school CTE program and maybe a credential of market value, that's how we see ourselves kind of helping bridge the gap.
Yeah, that's great. And then the good thing about what we have going on with this pipeline is that, again, you're not going in a large amount of debt, but there's also ways that through the state we can get funding. So there's ways to pay for that. So Katie, what are some of the the grants that are available for employers or future employees, or what does that kind of look like from a funding perspective?
Yeah, so we utilize state and federal grants. Our biggest one is Going Pro. So you might have heard the state budget. So yes, I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room, the state budget. If you have a way to write a letter to your local congresswoman, man, whomever, please do so on behalf of the workforce budget, because there's a lot of individuals that will be affected if that money goes away. So 55 million is released in the first cycle, 11 million is released in the second cycle. We work with our training providers, so a lot of times they're the ones identifying the training that's needed with the employer, and then we're coming in with hopefully a state and federal dollars to support that training to upskill the workers. So that's kind of like how we fit into the pipeline. There's, the money, then you have the training, and then you have the employers. So it takes all of us to work collaboratively, and the workforce budget is crucial.
Yeah, it takes a village, it really does. So I think looking at that adult level, I kind of want to go back and talk to Kelly a little bit. How do we get so you're in 3rd grade, you're in 5th grade, whatever that looks like. I know for a fact, at least in my generation, I didn't even know about manufacturing, I think, till I was 20. Like, it just wasn't something that anybody talked about. Machining, welding, I just didn't know. It wasn't one of the careers that were ever exposed to me. It was never talked about. You talk about the lawyers and the doctors and some of the teachers and the nurses, but there was really no exposure. I have no idea that there's so many good jobs that are out there and so many good companies. They have great culture in this community. And I personally think that's a problem, and we have to expose those children to some of these careers at an early age. And I think that's exactly what ShopRat has been doing. So how do you better engage those youngsters just to get them interested, or not even interested, just to see if they have interest?
So with youth, it's kind of, you have to look at it from two sides. It's both the activities that you do in the schools and in the community to create awareness around what manufacturing careers truly are, what the impact of manufacturing is in our society. Because so often students just, they have no idea what this industry looks like, but also they don't understand the impact. They think, I want to grow up and I want to do something that helps people. And they don't know that the company down the street is making, medical equipment. And they don't know that everything in their house was made by somebody's hands and minds. So telling that story and helping make that connection is a really big piece of it. But also the parents. I mean, when we're talking about creating awareness among youth, it's also creating awareness amongst their parents of what these modern manufacturing careers look like, the quality of career that they are, and the opportunities that are available both for their child coming, up into a potential career, but also for themselves. If they're looking for an opportunity.
Yeah. So I think it's important. I mean, you're definitely a critical part of that pipeline. You attract that younger generation, but I'm guessing you cannot do it by yourself. And there's been a lot of lessons over the years. And how do you partner with people on this panel? Because again, it's kind of isolating when you're like, I just work with kids, and then everybody's kind of doing their part. But how do you partner with other organizations to kind of make sure that they're intertwined or braided?
Absolutely. Yes. Making sure that we have all of those on-ramps. So partnerships are really foundational to what we do. When it comes to our in-school robotics program, that's partnering with our schools to be able to go in and do that in the classrooms with the teachers. During our summer programs, we partnered with Jackson College to be able to facilitate programs on site there. We've partnered with JPEC at Jackson College to be able to facilitate a longer session hands-on program. It's really in partnering with JAMA in the Advanced Manufacturing Training Center that we have a single educational facility that bridges that gap of youth all the way up through adulthood, and we can make sure that our curriculum is aligned. Partnerships are just extremely important to us to make those connections, to have a comprehensive understanding of what this ecosystem looks like in our community and how we can create meaningful opportunities that are complementary and lack redundance. Right?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of my son growing with this organization as well. So I have experience with this summer. My son was out to the college for a ShopRat partnership, Sparks and Chips, I think it was called. Spark Force. So, you know, he got to machine a golf putter, and then he got to weld different projects and stuff, and he loved it. So seeing that partnership, and then for him to be able to see the, you know, go to the campus and just be introduced to that, see that local, you know, the place that he can go down the road if he's looking to do that, I think is really important. And he's had classes as well at the Advanced Manufacturing Training Center. So many acronyms. And so again, he gets to see what maybe the GMO people are up to over there. So just exposing him not only to those careers or, you know, the projects, but really showing him what can be down the line. I think it's so important. So yeah, it's exciting to see him go through that. So he started with Lego Robotics, and, you know, I hope one day he can go through an apprenticeship program or go for additional training at JC and work for one of us. Because again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get workers to work for a manufacturer. So, and we got to keep thinking about that end goal. So, Jamie, when you think, or most people, when they think about college, they think about, you know, like a teenager or a young adult that goes off and, you know, they're seeking this, you know, this career or, you know, certificate, whatever you want to call it, degree, thank you. They're looking for that degree. So they're starting off, they're young, they're going through that. But what about those that are already in a career, already at a manufacturer, and they just need to be upskilled because technology changes and they need new skills? I mean, how does that look for you? What strategies have been most effective in making sure that you can upskill employees?
Sure. This is something we've been very aware of. Like, we have people walk in the door and say, I was at this shop for 20 years and then it closed, or I'm looking to change into a different type of manufacturing, or I want to learn a different skill set. And we don't want them to come in and have to take 15, 16 credits to get to the end. We want to honor the experience that they came in with, that they picked up at one of your companies or somewhere else. And so we've been looking at kind of a competency-based approach, so aligning with how apprenticeships are in our area and saying, you already have these competencies done, so we're not going to make you pay for this entire class that you only have one competency left. So our faculty have been piloting some open lab opportunities so students can come in and go faster or slower, or if they're working on the job and they get mandated or they need to stay a little bit longer, something's happening in production. And that's been going really well. Actually, Albert, and he's in the back there, and Eddie and a few others have been manning the open labs, and they told me they've been having students come in and just go as fast as they can. But again, that's performance-based assessment. So if you can do the thing, you come in, you show it, you move on. You don't have to spend as much time on it. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah, all right.
It's so early.
Early awake, yeah. So, Olivia, I know JAMA is no stranger to upskilling as well. What's your thoughts on, you know, what is effective for JAMA and the academy to get them the skills that they need to gain for the evolution?
Yeah, so it's really, I mean, we have the standard curriculum for the apprenticeship training, but we have to meet manufacturers and employers where they're at too. So sometimes it is taking a class and condensing it and forming it to that specific manufacturer. And so customizing that class is really important for some of our manufacturers. The other piece that we're actually looking at and exploring is is there a way that we can do some testing on potential employees for manufacturers? And then if they don't have that specific skill, then can we train them so that the manufacturer can hire them? So we're creative in what we do, and we can actually make things happen at the flip of a light switch, and that, is what makes JAMA stand out.
Yeah, and I think just like you said, just doing some of that basic training that a lot of employees don't have coming into it. There's different levels of technical positions within manufacturer, but then there's some basic ones, where they're literally machining, production machining, or assembling, where they don't need fancy apprenticeship programs or anything, but what they need is basic knowledge of certain areas of manufacturing. And that generally is one of the big things that sets somebody apart when you're hiring them. It's A, work ethic, will they be a good employee, but 2, do they have that basic structure? So if manufacturers aren't finding people that have that basic structure, we can work with JAMA and be able to give them that basic training. So I think that's going to help on a lot of those, I don't want to say lower level positions, but more production related positions. So going back to this, so Katie, I know you talked about your grants and such, but walk us through a process, because I know like at Peak Manufacturing, we've had some funding for some upskilling and basic like HR positions. So it's not always just manufacturing, it's like HR within the manufacturing company. And I know we worked with you guys before, but kind of walk them through how Michigan Work just kind of helps somebody pay for those classes.
Sure. So we work with the state, Leo, WD, and they identify high priority sectors and technical trainings and things. So we work within those guidelines. And a lot of the classes that we assist with, training is not just manufacturing. It's not your welding. Like you said, it's your HR. It's getting somebody SHRM certified. It's best practices. It plays into the culture. It plays into the retention. Which I think is a bigger piece of the puzzle, because it's easy to look at the technical skills and things that are lacking, but when you start to look at retention and turnover and trying to keep people where they're at and upskill them there, I think that's really where some of the greatest work happens.
Thank you. So going back again to the young generation, Kelly, so ShopRat has evolved. So years ago, in our very early stages, and I've seen several faces here that remember those stages, we used to make chopper motorcycles as part of our projects. We used to make wheelie cars. When everything started, it was very fun, let's build a cool project to just kind of get them interested. And that's how it started. Now, the program has changed so much over the years, and it has to adapt for where we're at for automation and the digital transformation that we're seeing. So, Kelly, how have they changed, and what are they changing to, and how do you kind of put together what type of programs you're doing for the youth?
Absolutely. I think the student interest has changed a bit. I mean, it's still about creating something that's, them doing a project in the class that they're excited about and that they're having fun with. That's why we'll do a drone camp, or we'll do some of the different robotics programs, because they're excited about that. And so it's still meeting them there, but infusing more of the technological side into the curriculum has become a higher priority. Also, when it comes to the projects that we're doing in, say, machining and welding, it's making sure that project still is that fun and exciting piece, but that we can directly correlate that to standards that the students are going to be held to and skill sets that are going to matter for them in those next steps. Because, we have an 80% retention rate among our students. So, and what I mean by that is a student that does an extracurricular program with that, 80% of our students will continue into a follow-up one. So there's a really good chance that they're going to keep moving down that pipeline. And we want to make sure that when it's time for us to hand that student off to our partner that's doing that next step, that they're equipped for that. Another piece in terms of the career exploration side, we created, in partnership with Lean Rocket Lab, an app a few years ago that is career exploration focused. It uses 360 video. meeting them where they are, where the first place that they go when they have curiosity is going to be to technology. It's mostly to their phone. And the first thing that they're going to look for an answer is a video. And so try to just think about what tools do they go to natively and what interests do they have, and how do we kind of take those all into consideration to create curriculum that matters for creating a workforce, but also is engaging enough to hold them in.
And you don't just start with intro classes through the whole thing. I'm guessing there's advanced classes. And so what are some examples of some of the classes that are more advanced, but that are tackling some of the Industry 4.0 type positions out there?
Our design to prototype class, that is a fusion of engineering, design, and manufacturing. So in that class, they will participate in the 3D modeling project using SolidWorks, but then we will try to construct it using additive and subtractive. So they may be 3D printing part of it, and then using a CNC or manual machines to use subtractive manufacturing to create the other parts of it. So that's kind of an example of more of an advanced class that's really pulling from what is industry looking like now and what is.
Sure. And Olivia, I'm guessing you have some changes in your apprenticeship programs and the curriculum for that. What does it look like for representing the Jackson community in the rise of Industry 4.0 and automation and robotics and AI? And how are you changing your apprenticeship program to meet those needs?
Yeah, so from my perspective, we've had employees that have been working for 5 years to 30 years. And so that variation creates a bit of a dilemma for us. But we're saying we need to teach some more problem-solving skills, system thinking, equipment troubleshooting. What about data interpretation and human-machine interactions? And then, the bigger thing is cybersecurity. Having that awareness that your CNC machine could get hacked, and how do we protect that data? So those are all things that we're trying to incorporate into our trainings so that the individuals are better prepared for dealing with Industry 4.0 and automation.
And Jamie, I'm guessing you guys are kind of doing the same. What kind of programs do you have as far as focusing on Industry 4.0?
So we have kind of a mix. The security aspect that you're talking about, if you're interested to learn more, one of our faculty will be on site today, Angel Fonseca, and she's got an NSF grant to kind of build out a blockchain program, so helping people look at how to secure their data. That's, again, one of those examples of where we were able to go after a grant, but then can bring that information back to our community for courses that you might need. In terms of automation, this was kind of a slow switchover for us. We had some really excited deans on campus quite a while ago that were like, we're going to do this thing. And when we talked to our manufacturers, they were like, I don't know if that's the thing we want. And so we had to pause for a second and go back to industry and say, okay, what is it that you're looking for? And then now let's build that out. And so that's another program that we wrote a grant for NSF to build out a new interdisciplinary program in manufacturing, which will kind of cross fabrication and automation. So students will have to go through the process of fabricating a part, but then also using our AMRs to move them around campus, assess the path that it's taking and all the data analytics that comes with that. So they're going to have some more applicable skills that they can then bring to your shop.
Great. Katie, so you are the boots on the ground for Michigan Works. So you get to deal with an array of businesses. But I want to talk specifically about manufacturers. What kind of partnerships, successful partnerships, have you had working with specific manufacturers as far as, again, trying to get workers in their company?
I have many examples. I have lots of examples. There's a tier 1 automotive supplier that comes to mind that had a $100,000 grant, and we were able to upskill and provide, I think, at least a minimum of $2,000 reimbursement for 60 employees, new hire employees, which is huge when you're talking about, Jackson area and the lives and the people. And I think that's the biggest thing is, when we're looking at grants, it's not always just one grant. It's not always just a transactional thing. It's working with our training providers. You know, she's talking about blockchain, but when I'm talking to manufacturers and I hear something, and I'm like, oh, have you guys, you know, started looking into blockchain yet? Have you heard of that yet? You know, and so that's kind of how it works. When I know JAMA has the SHRM certification program, and I'm out there talking to manufacturers, and we're looking at best practices and how do we upskill your team, you know, and even though it's still manufacturing, it's not specifically hands on the line, welding or fabricating. And so it's just utilizing those different grants at different phases, different points of the year, depending on what the needs are and depending on what's going to drive that business to be successful.
And I think there's more programs too than just the funding of it. I know a couple of you are on the, I don't know if it's a board, but you work with the vocational village. So I don't know who wants to tackle this. We'd have to prepare this and all, but who wants to talk a little bit about that and how that's helping the manufacturers in this community?
Yeah, so JAMA created a vocational village committee made up of several different partners throughout Jackson, whether it's housing or the Interface Shelter, Michigan Works. We have several partners on that committee to try and figure out what are the barriers for vocational village students and how can we break down those barriers and get these vocational village students employed at a manufacturer. And we piloted the program back in March. And this particular individual is employed at one of our local manufacturers. He was able to get an apartment within a couple of weeks of being released. Michigan Works helped them get a grant for a vehicle. And so we're seeing huge success with that. And so we're just continuing to work with MDOC and the partners to figure out how do we make this better? What do we need to do to improve? So that this can stretch beyond just manufacturing because they have other programs at the vocational village at Parnell facility here in Jackson.
Yeah. So it takes a village.
It does.
That's a village.
Yeah.
No, that's great because I think it's important that we look at all different aspects of how do we, you know, get workers, and that's a perfect opportunity. And there's just so much that that helps with, you know, these people that are starting over, and I just think it's a great program and a great resource for our community, so check it out. Jamie, can you give me a couple of examples of how Jackson College has worked specifically with a manufacturer or manufacturer's specific program?
Sure. And I've talked a lot about Jackson College and kind of the credit side, but I do want to acknowledge that we have a strong CCE team here, so that's our Corporate and Continuing Education Department. And this is where that department is a little bit more flexible than maybe what our rigid, you know, current curriculum processes are. And so some of these examples are going to come out of the work that our CCE team has done. So in working, Amber was working with Michigan Works and some local companies to develop a leading edge series. And so that's a leadership training that qualifies for funding because it meshes the leadership skills and kind of the technical hard skills. And so we've had quite a few companies going through that, and we're on round 2 now. So there was a request for kind of a second level. So that's an example that we've, you know, kind of helped, not in an area that's manufacturing, but at a manufacturer. And then when you think about Jackson College as a workforce organization, CCE also is kind of the holder of Michigan New Jobs Training Program funds. And so we get allocations throughout the year, and companies can say, yes, we want to do that, and they can set aside funding to train individuals. That funding or that training doesn't have to happen at Jackson College. It can be anywhere, but we hold those funds, and that's a service that community colleges in the state do. Now, we do have a lot of people that choose, okay, how can I do a training at JAMA? Can I do a training at Jackson? Great. And so that's kind of part of what we do in the workforce, is helping you look at somebody that's maybe not ready, and then you allocate those funds to get them ready, right? Or upskill individuals to a new position that has higher pay. And then maybe one other specific example, a local manufacturer showed us we had our faculty go out and analyze their like orientation training. So a couple weeks, they hire new employees. They go through training before they go on the shop floor. We analyze that, and we recognize the amount of credit that students were getting. And so those students, when they're just at that manufacturer and they're done with that training, they automatically get credit at Jackson College. We've had quite a few come through in the last year. I would say at least 20, because I signed those. And so And then that puts them right into the path for the ability to upskill, whether it's at Jackson or JAMA, because we have some aligned programming. And we've had that employer pay for some of those students to come back and get that additional credit. And so that's another thing that we do in the workforce.
It's great. I do think Jackson is special in the sense that we've been working on this stuff for so many years. And, we have all these different programs in place, but really it's those partnerships and it's working together and making sure that we all have that same goal, in our mind. And it's amazing to see all the different organizations and how they're working with the manufacturers specifically. Because it's really easy, again, coming from industry, it's easy to put your blinders on and only focus on your company, your profit and loss, your, the things that you're doing, but really you have to be involved and it has to be a community-wide effort. Otherwise, we're all going to be in huge trouble. So at this time, thank you ladies for those questions. I do want to open up to the audience for any questions that anybody has. Don't be shy. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys have talked about strategies to get people involved in manufacturing and get people excited about manufacturing. I'm curious though, from an employer side and a training provider and a community standpoint, what the difference you're seeing in generations when it comes to skills, what are more important, what they value more, especially between like Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z, because it seems like we're at a point where it's so different right now that it can make it almost a moving target on what to focus on. So I'm just curious what you're seeing out of your head.
You have to evolve for sure. I mean, I will say that. I'm learning that a lot at my company. Just the generational differences. You have to evolve. You have to change really the structure and everything that you've known for so many years. It's changing, and you got to keep up with that newer generation. But looking back, and I'll let them talk to this, but when years ago when ShopRat Foundation first started, the whole idea for ShopRat really it didn't start off with the kids. So it started off as the founder wanted to bring honor and respect back to the people that build the world around us, and it all happened out of spite. Some of you may have heard this, but his wife said to him, "I don't want my son to grow up and be a shop rat like you," and that was it for him. He's like, you know what? He can be a shop rat and he can run this world, and so that's kind of what started it. It started as a membership organization, but he kept going out into these communities and talking to people, and what he found very quickly was that the young people didn't get it. They didn't know what a shop rat was. They had no idea. The older people hated it. They didn't want anything to do with it. They thought it was a complete joke. So those generational changes, it's really given us more of an opportunity to reach that younger generation because they don't have the doom and gloom in their mind of what manufacturing is. So it's our responsibility to show them what it really is. So I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add.
I think, yeah, definitely that's part of it. When you're talking about a Gen X or some of us elder millennials, when we were in school, that was when industrial tech programs were being dissolved. It was everyone, go to college, pursue that four-year degree. And so I think a lot of our generation finding about these careers, like learning about these career pathways and kind of self-destigmatizing them is part of it, and meeting them there when it comes. And also I think for millennials, it's a lot about the impact. It's the culture, it's the impact. For Gen Z, it's the balance. Being able to have that work-life balance is very, very important to them. That impact is very, very important to them, but they want to work to live, not live to work. And so kind of bearing that in mind with cultures has, I think, been and you guys are welcome to.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And what I try and tell people is you're working with multiple generations here, but how can you be flexible? How can you change what you're doing and be flexible with all the different generations? And I know a lot of people tell me we just can't be flexible. I'm telling you, there's a way for you to be flexible.
Well, and reasonably, you have to be.
Right.
Right now, if you want the workforce, you have to learn to be flexible.
Yep.
Anything to add down there?
No, you said it really well. I was going to say the same thing as students, you have to align your opportunity with what they value. And so if you're the manufacturer who's not valuing that somebody has had planned family vacation or something, you know, whatever that might be, you're going to lose the ability to keep the workforce, right? So it becomes a retention strategy, is being able to meet them where they are and recognize what those values are.
Yeah, and I think creating, you know, some sort of committee or something within your facility and have all the different generations come together and talk about how, you know, if you have to create one path, how do you give and take on that and find a resolution that fits your whole team? But having them be involved in that, I think will help. You have one.
Follow up on
Yeah,
that?
just real quick, that is the second time I've heard that in the past 2 weeks, that Jesse works to live, they don't live to work. And I think I was at a manufacturing event last week, and they said, I think it's baby boomer generation, if they had moved on, if they worked 70, 60 years, 50 years, whatever it may be, after work was over, you know, like the fatality rate went up immediately after that over the next year. So it's just interesting to see in trying to match up what people need for certain generations, right? If you think about it, one kid's gonna need this, the other kid's gonna need that. So you do the best to match that up. So it's just interesting to see it. I want to be here today because
Jim?
cool.
Yeah.
I just want to make an observation. I'm going to recognize this guy right here, Bill Rail, because he and I are some of the old guys that started back in the 90s with Jackson. And back then, this table would have been a whole bunch of old men. Okay? And I just want to recognize the leadership that you have all brought to this. I mean, Jamie was one of my MTL students back in the day, and now look at where she's at today. Look at where you're at today, man. I remember when the shop rats thing got started. And I just think there's been such a phenomenal change and a shift. And what I see is the collaboration going on with, you know, Olivia and everybody at the table. I just think this is a great thing for Jackson. It's a great thing for manufacturing, and I'm just really looking forward to see what the next 10 years brings. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Albert.
Thank you. So without saying, as you might notice, women in manufacturing, how important it is, and you know, continuing to promote that. So everybody's kind of like a voice in this industry. Any other questions? I think we're good on time anyways. I do want to leave the panelists just one more minute to kind of give you the message that they want you to leave with, because I think it's important. Everybody here has, you know, needs within their organizations. I just want to make sure they have the time to tell you what they want you to learn from this. So go ahead, Kelly.
I think the biggest thing, if I could pick one takeaway for you from this session, is something that Jackson does very, very well and that I take a lot of pride in is our collaboration, that we're constantly looking out from our lane to see who else is engaged in this, who else is doing this, and how can we do it together better. I think that's a really important thing that I'd like you to take away, but also across the board, I think what's making us successful in our efforts is our agility, that we're willing to change from something that we've been doing for 20 years and find a new way of doing it to meet the needs of our community, meet the needs of our manufacturers, and meet the needs of our youth that are coming up, to make sure that we're addressing that skill gap in a really comprehensive way.
And of course, I'm going to take it from the training and investing in your people perspective. So the future is investing in your people, whether that is building flexible career pathways or training, whether that is adapting to future trends. You have to invest in your people to be successful.
I had 2 words written down: collaboration and flexibility. So I was just going to highlight this event, right? As this event is a great kind of end of the collaboration that these individuals here at the table, and Amber and some folks who have been serving on this committee. And so I just wanted to recognize you guys for, I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Look at all these huge booths. And so we're going to have a great day. And I wanted to recognize the hard work you guys have put into that.
Thank you.
Kim. I don't have anything extra to add because that was all the stuff I was going to say. We're talking about collaboration, the event. This is a great showcase of how we collaborate in Jackson, how we use our state and federal grants to support hiring and training, all the different focuses that we have, and like you said, Kelly, our agility and just being able to shift focus depending on what the industry needs. And I think a lot of what pushes us is our kids. I think that's a huge takeaway for us is that, we want to build a stronger economy. We want to see them have opportunities. We want, there's so many different driving forces, but I know for a lot of the ladies here that is our driving force, is making sure our kids have opportunities that maybe we didn't have or exposure to things that we didn't have.
Very well said. Thank you, panelists. I appreciate all the work that you put into this and your great messages. Thank you guys for listening and supporting that we all work together in this, so I appreciate it. And I think we'll get out of here for the next one.
Thank you.